My siblings mocked me for inheriting Dad's trash gas station until they saw the $200 million secret, and I flipped the script on them in a way they never expected. Thanks for being here with me today. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. I'd love for you to share in the comments what city or country you're watching from and what time it is there now. Let's start our story together. I'm Yen, a 32-year-old man. I've worked at my dad's old gas station since I was a teenager. Dad passed away 3 months ago after a massive stroke. He was a tough guy, a Vietnam vet who worked every day of his life until he was 75. My sisters, Chloe and Megan, always thought I was wasting my life helping the old man run a failing business while I got my engineering degree at night. They both left our small town as soon as they could. Chloe, 38, became a hotshot corporate lawyer in Chicago, and Megan, 35, is a big-deal investment banker in New York. They visited maybe once a year, usually at Christmas, and spent the whole time talking about their fancy apartments and vacation homes. I was the one who stayed. The one who helped Dad with the books when his eyesight started to go. The one who took over most of the mechanic work when his arthritis got so bad he couldn't hold a wrench. The one who drove him to his doctor's appointments and made sure he took his meds. It was the life I planned. Honestly, I had no dreams of designing engines for NASCAR or Formula One. But life happens, you know. Mom died when I was in college, and someone had to take care of the old man. My sisters sure weren't going to. Anyway, Dad's will reading was last week, and holy crap, it didn't go as expected. My sisters showed up in matching black designer outfits that probably cost more than I make in a month. The whole time, they were whispering about how they'd split Dad's savings and what they'd do with the lake cabin. The lawyer, an older guy who was Dad's fishing buddy, started reading. To my daughters, Chloe and Megan, I leave the sum of $75,000 each. You should have seen their faces. Chloe's face froze mid-smile. That's it, she snapped, blinking like she'd misheard. Then came the real shocker. The lawyer barely looked up from the papers. To my son, Yen, I leave my gas station business, all related properties, structures, and contents therein, along with my dog, Beaver. Dead silence. Then Chloe snorted. The gas station? The one that looks like it should have been condemned in the 90s. They went on and on about how Dad had clearly lost his mind towards the end and how unfair it was that I'd manipulated him by staying close. Then Megan leaned on the counter with a look of pure professionalism. Look, Yen, I know you think this place means something, but it's just land. It's a liability. The regulations alone could bury you, and I don't want to see you stuck here fighting a losing battle. Chloe chimed in with fake sympathy. Dad was sentimental, we get it, but you're smart. You've always been smart. You don't have to struggle like he did. Let us help you. Megan nodded. Take the $20,000. Get out while you can. No drama, no headaches. Yeah, right. The same sisters who couldn't be bothered to call Dad on his birthday were suddenly concerned about helping me. I'll be honest, for a split second, I actually considered it. $20,000 wasn't life-changing money, but it was a ticket out. I could finally leave this dying town, get an apartment somewhere new, maybe even use my engineering degree for once. No more fighting with broken gas pumps, no more sleepless nights over bills, just freedom. But what they don't understand is that while they were building their careers, I was the one helping Dad keep his dream alive, watching him work 18-hour days, learning everything about his business, and keeping him company after Mom died. The gas station might be worthless to them, but it was Dad's life. After the reading, I went back to Dad's. I guess my gas station. It's this old-school place with 2 pumps that barely work and a garage where we did repairs. The sign out front has been fading for years. Dad always talked about repainting it, but it never happened. Beaver was waiting at the door, like he always did for Dad. He's this 12-year-old golden retriever mix, with a graying muzzle and bad hips. He looked at me, then looked behind me for Dad, then back at me with this confused expression that just broke my heart. I knelt down and hugged him, and I swear we both knew exactly how the other felt. I was stuck with a crumbling gas station that barely covered expenses, a grieving old dog that followed me everywhere, and 2 sisters who suddenly wanted family meetings about my inheritance. I spent that week going through Dad's office at the gas station. Dad's office was a time capsule. Every receipt, invoice, and property record from the last 40 years neatly filed. At first, it was just paperwork, but then I noticed certain documents had blue check marks or red dots, and a topographical map at the bottom of a drawer had markings and numbers that matched Dad's neat handwriting. He was trying to tell me something. That night, while Baster snored under the desk, I found a hidden compartment in the drawers with an old photo album. It showed the gas station in its heyday, Mom and Dad when they were young. And strangely, dozens of photos of the overgrown land behind the garage, some marked with X and measurements. One photo stood out, Dad with a man in a suit, both holding scientific equipment. On the back, Dad had written, "Initial confirmation with SDBM." Promising. Who the hell was SDBM, and what had Dad been confirming? The next morning, I went out to investigate. It's completely overgrown now, weeds taller than me, brambles, small trees. But I pushed through and found the remnants of some kind of metal structure, almost completely covered in vines. No clue what it is, but Dad clearly thought it was important. I was about to investigate further when Chloe's BMW pulled up. I quickly headed back to the front, not wanting her to see what I was doing. Call me paranoid, but something tells me I should keep this to myself for now. "There you are," she said, looking at me like I was something stuck to her expensive shoe. "We need to discuss this ridiculous situation. Megan and I have agreed to up our offer to $35,000 for this place." She gestured around like she was afraid to touch anything, her designer purse clutched tightly at her side. "I'm not interested in selling," I said. She actually laughed. "Yen, be realistic. What are you going to do with a failing gas station? You can barely afford your apartment. Take the money and move on." "It's not about the money," I said, which only made her laugh harder. "It's always about the money," she replied simply. "You're just too naive to realize it." Before I could respond, Baster limped out of the garage, covered in dirt from digging somewhere out back. Chloe wrinkled her nose. "That dog needs to be put down. He's suffering." I'd never wanted to punch my sister before, but there's a first time for everything. "Baster is family," I said, keeping my voice calm. "More family than some people around here." That hit a nerve. "We're trying to help you," she insisted. "This place is a money pit." Dad was sentimental about it, but you need to be practical. She left after I made it clear I wasn't selling, but not before saying they'd be back with a more formal approach. 2 days after Chloe's visit, I was served with legal papers. My lovely sisters are contesting Dad's will, claiming he wasn't of sound mind when he wrote it. They're saying I manipulated him into changing his will because I was financially dependent on him. The truth is, Dad updated his will 5 years ago, right after his heart attack scare. I didn't even know about it until the reading. I called Dad's lawyer, who just sighed and said, "Your father warned me this might happen. He's going to help me fight, but he said I should prepare for a nasty battle. Your sisters have resources," he warned. "They can afford to drag this out." Great, just what I need. A long, drawn-out legal battle that I can't afford. A few days later, Megan showed up out of the blue with some suit type talking big numbers. They were offering $100,000 for the property, way more than my sister's last offer, but still too low, and suddenly they wanted it so badly. "This is a good deal, Yen," Megan said, "all business. The land is basically worthless. Cleaning up an old gas station site would cost more than it's worth." When I asked why they even cared about worthless land, the suit, who probably spent more on hair gel than I do on groceries, gave me a bunch of corporate BS about community revitalization and long-term development. "We're investing in multiple properties in this area," he said smoothly. "Your father's gas station is in a key location for our vision." "Yeah, right. This place is on a dead-end road that nobody cares about since they built the bypass 15 years ago. There's nothing here to revitalize." I asked Megan how she got mixed up with these guys, and she gave me that smug "I know something you don't" look. Let's just say I know people. Oh, great. Because that's not sinister at all. After they left, I noticed a car parked down the street. Some guy with a camera was taking pictures of the property, especially the overgrown area out back. The second he saw me watching him, he took off. I wasn't going to just stand there like an idiot. I hopped in my truck and followed him, keeping my distance, just close enough to see where he was going. He took a winding route through town. Classic I'm being followed moves, but I wasn't new to this. Finally, he pulled into a strip mall and slipped into some nondescript office with frosted glass windows. No sign, no name, just vague enough to be suspicious. I parked across the street, snapped a picture of his license plate, and did some digging. Whoever these guys were, they'd been quietly buying up half the town for the past year. This wasn't just about the gas station. Someone was planning something big. The next morning, I went back to that metal structure I'd found. I pulled back more vines and realized it's some kind of old drilling rig. Not huge, but definitely professional grade. Dad never mentioned anything about drilling on the property. The equipment looked like it had been used for taking core samples, the kind geologists use to analyze what's underground. Why would Dad need core samples? What was he looking for? I was knee-deep in files when I found a stack of certified letters from the State Department of Natural Resources. Full of jargon, but repeating phrases. One letter mentioned potential reserves, but didn't specify what kind. Then I saw a name, Stephen Miller. I wondered if that was the same Steve M. from Dad's old photos. Then I found something else, a key taped to the back of a filing cabinet, with a note in Dad's handwriting. When the time comes. No clue what lock. I tried every drawer, cabinet, and door. Nothing. But things were getting weird. My sisters never cared about this place. For 20 years, they called it Dad's money pit. Now, suddenly, they're bringing in developers and lawyers. The next morning, I got a call from our useless mayor, Megan's high school ex-boyfriend, whom she dumped for not being ambitious enough. We've received complaints about some code violations at the gas station, he said, in that fake polite voice politicians use when they're about to screw you over. Sure, 3 months ago, this place was fine, but now that my sisters want it, suddenly it's an environmental disaster. I was starting to feel like I was in some low-budget conspiracy thriller with bad acting. At least I had Baster. I found him obsessively digging out back again today. I pulled him away, but he went right back. Maybe the old boy knew something I didn't. When I checked the area, I found a concrete slab buried under years of overgrowth. What the hell was a slab doing there? And why was Baster acting like he'd just discovered the meaning of life? I didn't have time to think about it, though, because the mayor's office sent out their so-called inspection team. A total joke. They barely glanced at the gas station, but they spent over an hour poking around the back lot, taking soil samples and pictures. When I asked what they were looking for, they gave me some vague excuse about routine environmental concerns. Right. After decades of not caring, they're suddenly deeply interested in the soil quality of a half-dead gas station. One of the inspectors, a younger guy who looked uncomfortable with the whole thing, pulled me aside as they were leaving. Look, I don't know what's going on here, he said quietly. But this isn't a normal inspection. Someone is putting pressure on the department to find violations. Great. So the mayor is definitely in on whatever my sisters are planning. I tried looking up this Stephen Miller guy, but it's like he never existed. No business records, no LinkedIn, nothing. Just a ghost in the system. If he's still around, he'd be in his 70s, but something tells me he's not the kind of guy who wants to be found. Meanwhile, my sister Megan called that night, suddenly very concerned about my well-being. Yen, I'm worried about you. The city is being really tough, inspectors everywhere. This is going to turn into a nightmare. She let that sink in before continuing, very softly. Now, I don't want to see you go through that, so we talked to the buyers, and they're willing to go up to $150,000. It's a big win for you, Yen. I stayed silent. She sighed. Look, we both know this place isn't worth the trouble. Dad wouldn't have wanted you to throw your life away on this. And what exactly did Dad want? I snapped back. There was a long pause. Just take the money, Yen. This isn't going to end well for you if you keep fighting. Was that a threat from my own sister? By this point, I was going through Dad's files like a madman, and I found a hidden compartment in his filing cabinet. Inside was a sealed envelope with coordinates written on it, and a stack of technical documents from some company dated 1979. A bunch of geological jargon I didn't understand, but I kept seeing phrases like high-grade deposits and economically significant. They didn't mention what they were looking for exactly, though. I plugged the coordinates into Google Maps, and guess what? They pointed to a spot about 50 yards behind the garage, right where that old drilling rig is, and right where Baster keeps digging. Speaking of Baster, the poor old guy is the only one keeping me sane through all this, even though he's been acting weird. He keeps whining and pawing at the safe in Dad's office. Dad never let anyone touch that safe, not even me. Always said it contained retirement plans. I tried every combination I could think of, birthdays, anniversaries, addresses, nothing worked. I decided to try clearing more of that concrete slab Baster found. After an hour of hacking away, I realized it wasn't just a random slab. It was the top of what looked like a bunker or underground structure. There was a seam that suggested it might be a door or hatch, but I couldn't find a way to open it. The next day, Chloe showed up again, this time with 2 lawyers. One of them handed me a thick document detailing all the ways the gas station supposedly violates environmental regulations, building codes, and business license requirements. "This is harassment, and you know it," I said. She didn't even deny it. "It's business, Yen. Everything has a price. Yours just keeps going down." The lawyers started talking about potential fines and how the property could be seized to pay for remediation costs. "What happened to you?" I asked Chloe. "We used to build forts together in the backyard. Now you're threatening me with lawyers." For a split second, I saw something like regret flicker across her face. Then it was gone, replaced with that cold, grown-up lawyer expression. "Yen, this is the real world. Dad coddled you for too long." As they were leaving, I noticed Beaver was gone. I found him back again, digging frantically at the edge of that concrete slab. When I pulled him away, I saw he'd uncovered what looked like a metal handle or latch, partially buried. I was about to investigate when my landlord called. Someone who filed an anonymous complaint saying I was operating a business out of my apartment. I'm not. And now I have 30 days to move out. My sisters were really pulling out all the stops to force my hand. I sat there, staring at the wall. For the first time since all this started, I actually let myself wonder if maybe Chloe and Megan were right. Maybe I was just an idiot, clinging to a broken dream. Maybe Dad left me the gas station because he felt guilty, not because he thought I could actually handle it. I had no money, no plan B, and now, no place to live. Maybe I should just take the offer and leave. But then Beaver whined, nudging my hand like he could sense what I was thinking. His hips were bad, his muzzle graying, but he still sat beside me like he always had, like he believed I had this. If Dad believed in me enough to leave me all this, then maybe I needed to believe in myself, too. So I spent the next 3 hours cracking Dad's safe. Turns out the combination was the day he bought the gas station. Should have guessed that sooner. Inside, no cash, no gold bars, just a thick folder labeled property assets, a small box with more keys, and an old flash drive. I felt like I was losing my mind. The folder was something, though. But instead of answers, it just gave me more questions. Turns out Dad didn't just own the gas station. He'd been buying up land around it for decades, almost 40 acres. What for? What for a gas station that was barely staying afloat? It made no sense. I sat there, flipping through deeds, feeling this mix of frustration and disbelief. Why the hell didn't he ever tell me? Why keep this a secret if it was supposed to be my inheritance? I needed answers, and fast. I took the old topographical surveys to a geologist, hoping he could make sense of them. He scanned the pages, frowning. "There's something here," he muttered, pointing to some chemical markers. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but this could be indicative of something valuable." "Like what?" I asked. Hard to say without a full report, but this could be big. I wanted to scream. Every time I thought I was getting somewhere, I hit another wall. But sitting around wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I grabbed a shovel and went back to that metal hatch Beaver found. If Dad wasn't going to give me a straight answer, I was going to dig it up myself. 3 hours in the dark, dirt flying everywhere, sweat pouring down my back, every muscle in my body screaming at me to stop. But I kept going. Finally, I uncovered the whole thing. An old access hatch leading down to some kind of underground chamber or tunnel. And of course, it was padlocked shut with a giant, rusty lock. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at that hatch like it was mocking me. Dad spent years hiding whatever was down there, and now that I was finally close, it felt like he was still keeping me out. My frustration was about to explode. What the hell was so important that he went through all this trouble to bury it? Then it hit me. That weird key I'd found taped to the back of the filing cabinet. I ran back to my truck, grabbed it, and raced back to the hatch, my hands shaking as I slid the key into the rusty lock. It clicked, and opened like it had been waiting for me this whole time. I hesitated for just a second before pulling open the hatch. I grabbed the handle and pulled. Nothing. Years of rust had sealed it shut. Beaver whined behind me as I braced my foot against the frame and pulled with all my might. The metal groaned, dust billowed, and for a second I thought the whole thing was going to rip apart in my hands. Then the seal broke. A blast of stale air hit me, and below, a narrow concrete staircase disappeared into the darkness. My stomach churned. This wasn't just some old storage room. This was deliberate. Dad built this to be hidden. Slowly, I descended, my flashlight cutting through the dust-filled air. At the bottom was a small, 8 by 10 room, cramped, cold, and lined with filing cabinets against the far wall. There was an old desk with a battery-powered lamp still intact, like someone had just left it there. This wasn't just some forgotten space. This was Dad's secret office. The place was covered in dust, but everything was right where Dad left it. He must have built this underground room decades ago, but what for? What was so important he needed to hide it? I wasn't prepared for what I found. Filing cabinets stuffed with papers. I felt like I'd stumbled onto something huge, but I had no idea what I was looking at. Then I found a newspaper clipping about the discovery of lithium deposits in nearby states. Inside was a note from Dad. Presence confirmed. Now the waiting game begins. Waiting for lithium to become valuable, for us kids to be old enough to understand what he was doing. One thing was clear. This wasn't some wild guess. Dad had spent years quietly buying up small plots of land around the gas station, securing all the mineral rights he could. Some of the paperwork even showed second mortgages on our house. He wasn't just clinging to a failing gas station. This was his life's work. I pulled out a map that showed every piece of land he'd bought, and it all clicked. He'd been building a perfect circle around something. Every purchase, every move, every sacrifice he made led to this. It made me feel guilty. All those years, I thought he was just a stubborn old man refusing to let go of the past. Turns out, he was way ahead of the game. Then I found Mom's old journals. She knew all about it. In one entry from 1992, she wrote, "Frank is playing the long game. The girls don't understand why we never take vacations or buy new cars, but someday, all this will be worth it." Using Frank, Dad's real name, just to match Mom's note. She believed in him. She gave up so much for this, and she didn't even get to see it pay off. When she died in 2005, it was like Dad just stopped living for anything else. I sat there for a while, just looking at his handwriting, feeling like I was reading something I was never supposed to see. I grabbed some of the papers and climbed out. But before I could even process what I'd found, Beaver started growling at the trees. When I looked up, I saw someone standing at the edge of the property. The second I yelled, they took off. The next morning, the hits kept coming. Dad's lawyer called. "Your sisters just filed an emergency injunction to prevent you from damaging or altering the property while they contest the will." Too late for that, but I didn't mention the underground room. Then things got even weirder. A black SUV pulled up, and two guys in government-issue suits stepped out, looking like they were straight out of a bad crime thriller. They flashed some vague credentials, talking in circles about resource development and land viability assessments. Very official-sounding nonsense. I played dumb, but they didn't seem convinced. They left a card and said they'd be in touch. Not even an hour later, Chloe called. Those men weren't from any government agency, Yin. They work for that developer guy I brought here. You need to be careful what you say. Okay, what was she really trying to warn me about? That's a new one. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because we're still family, she said. This is business, not personal. We're just trying to make sure Dad's discovery is managed properly. What discovery? I pressed. She went quiet for a second, then it slipped out. You really don't know, do you? Then she laid it on me. Ask yourself why a development company would offer $250,000 for a gas station on a dead-end road. Yeah, that number keeps going up. I didn't give it much thought. I headed back to the underground office. I had a feeling I hadn't found everything yet. And I was right. Hidden under a loose floorboard was a metal box, locked tight, with no key in sight. And on top of all that, Beaver has been acting strange. Barely eating, pacing around like he knows something is coming. Maybe he's just picking up on my stress, or maybe he knows more than I do. I took the box to a locksmith first thing in the morning. The guy barely looked at it before popping it open like it was nothing. Inside was a thick stack of documents, and right on top, a final geological report, much more recent than anything else I'd found. And that's when it all really sank in. All those years of surveys, tests, and land deals weren't just guesswork. The report confirmed what Dad must have known for decades. My heart pounded as I scanned the report. At first, it was just numbers and geological jargon I barely understood. Then I saw it, lithium. The stuff they make batteries out of, the stuff that powers everything from phones to electric cars. One of the most valuable resources on the planet right now. I blinked, then read it again. Confirmed high-grade lithium reserves. Estimated market value, $200 million. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just something valuable. This wasn't a maybe or a potential find. This was a gold mine buried beneath my feet. Dad knew. He always knew. And he spent his life making sure nobody else could take it from him. But the technology wasn't advanced enough back then to be sure, or to extract it efficiently. So he spent decades quietly securing the mineral rights to the entire area, parcel by parcel, waiting for the right moment. That drilling rig I found, early exploration tests, the underground room where he kept all this a secret, so nobody would try to take it from him before he had everything legally locked down. The box also contained the paperwork for a trust established 5 years ago, putting all the property and all mineral rights solely in my name, effective upon his death, completely separate from his will. That's why my sisters can contest the will all they want. It won't matter. The trust overrides it. Dad made sure of that. Inside the box was a thick stack of documents and a flash drive. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. A folder popped up, video files. The first one was from 1979. Dad, young and excited, standing next to that drilling rig when it was new. Just got the initial results back, he said, grinning. If this pans out like Steve thinks it will, this could change everything for our family. The most recent video was from just 6 months ago. Dad looked older, tired, but still sharp. He looked directly into the camera. Yen, if you're watching this, then you figured it out. I always knew you would. You were the only one who understood that real value isn't always obvious. Your sisters wanted quick rewards. You understood patience and hard work. This is your inheritance, not just what I found, but what you build around it. Don't let anyone take it from you. I must have watched that clip 20 times, tears streaming down my face. Baster curled up next to me, his head in my lap like he knew exactly what I was feeling. I called the lawyer, who confirmed the trust is ironclad. He knew about the lithium the whole time, but he was bound by confidentiality. Your father wanted you to discover this on your own, he explained. He said you'd appreciate it more that way. He was also worried that if he told you outright, your sisters might somehow find out before all the legal protections were in place. The old man was right. If he'd told me about the lithium, I probably would have told someone eventually. Maybe even tried to make amends with my sisters by telling them about it. Dad knew them better than I did. He knew they'd try to take over. It finally made sense. Why my sisters, who never cared about this place, suddenly want it. Why the mayor is digging up random code violations. Everyone knows, or at least suspects, what's under this land. But here's what they don't know. The trust. They think they can pressure me into selling, but Dad made sure that wasn't an option. Legally, I have complete control. As for how they found out, the videos gave me the answer. Dad mentioned working with a mining engineer years back. That guy now works for, surprise, surprise, one of the developers trying to grab the property. He must have put 2 and 2 together after Dad died and tipped off the wrong people. That's when my sisters suddenly realized the gas station they spent years calling a money pit was actually sitting on something valuable. Once I confirmed the lithium deposit and my legal ownership, I knew I had to handle this right. Selling wasn't even an option. So, I set up my own company afterward, using Dad's name. The lawyer put me in touch with people in the mining industry, the kind of experts who could actually manage this without cutting me out of my own inheritance. I arranged to keep 65% ownership while they handled the technical side. The best part, we're using the exact low-impact mining methods Dad had been researching for years. He wasn't just sitting on this, he was planning it. And then, as soon as word got out, all hell broke loose. My sisters threw every legal argument they could at the trust, trying to break it. When that didn't work, they switched tactics, claiming they were entitled to a share as heirs. The judge literally laughed them out of court. That should have been the end of it. But of course it wasn't. That's when it got ugly. Someone tried to set fire to the gas station. Security stopped them just in time. My apartment was broken into twice. Then the local paper ran a smear piece about how lithium mining will destroy the environment. The article was full of dramatic claims and anonymous sources, but I know exactly who was behind it. And then I found out someone even tried to steal Baster. Like, literally broke into the security perimeter to dognap my dog. Who does that? He's fine, by the way. Turns out, even at 12, a 75-pound golden retriever doesn't go quietly when some idiot tries to grab him. Right after that, Chloe showed up at my apartment, crying, apologizing, saying she didn't understand Dad's vision. She claimed she had no idea about the break-ins or the attempted dognapping. Maybe she was telling the truth, maybe not. Either way, she still tried the same manipulative crap as always. "We could run this company together, Yan," she said, her voice soft and sincere, just like Dad would have wanted. Except Dad very specifically did not want that. That's why he made sure they had no claim to any of this. Megan took a different approach. First, she bombarded my phone with messages about family legacy and what Dad would have wanted. When that didn't work, she moved on to threats, talking about going to the press with some dark family secrets about Dad, which is hilarious considering the worst thing he ever did was yell at the TV during football games. Yeah, too little, too late. And now the town that barely acknowledged my existence is suddenly acting like I'm their golden boy. The mayor, the same guy who tried to shut me down, is now bragging about how he's been supporting local business development. The neighbors who never said two words to me are suddenly inviting me to every town event.